You're watching Tilt Video.
Hey everybody, Bob Ostrom, Creative Director for Tilt 365, and today I'm joined by my good friend Sam Getty, Chief Marketing Officer of Tilt 365. Sam, how are you today?
Everything's going well. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for having me. Excited to be on here. Virtual, of course, but looking forward to talking about low work morale today.
I'm
like,
looking
not
forward.
the best topic, not the best topic to not the most exciting. I'm not saying I'm looking forward to it, but I'm here.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to our conversation. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of this thing. So let's talk a little bit about low morale and what does that look like in a work environment?
Yeah, perfect. Well, I think for me, a lot of times like low work morale often shows up with like team dysfunction. So basically at the bottom of the on the bottom of the line, like basically when you have a team that is having some sort of problem and they're not working well together, you end up having low work morale. And I think for me, when I look back at my career, a lot of times that's shown up with either like a lack of communication, lack of concrete goals, or maybe like lack of expectations. So and I find often when you have like two different parties, whether that's different teams or different people on a team, and they're coming together with a different frame of mind, oftentimes you find out you have this disconnect, and that's what creates this sort of tension. And then as a result, people have a low morale coming out of that.
Okay, so Sam, we talked a little bit about what low morale is. What does that look like when it comes into a team as a team leader? So if I'm a team leader, what am I looking out for, and what's my part in this whole thing?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few questions there, but on a high level, as a leader, you're responsible for setting the climate and the culture of your team. And oftentimes when there is a breakdown in the team and team dysfunction, it's going to come back to something that you're going to have ownership of, and you're going to have to try to remedy. I think we're fortunate since we work at Tilt, and at Tilt, we have a personality assessment that helps people understand their work styles, work patterns, their leadership styles. So I'd highly recommend people listening to try that out, because this could give you some increased awareness and exposure to how you are as a leader and how you like to work in general. But oftentimes, what will happen is as a leader, you may have a certain personality pattern or preference that may not be in sync with other people on your team. So one example, you could be someone who's what we call impact, which is someone who likes to move very quickly, ideal generation. Bob's smiling, he's seen that before. And you may have someone on your team then who's clarity. And clarity within the Tilt framework is actually on the opposite side of the spectrum. That's someone who is more, based on the word like clarity, more focus-based, data-oriented. And there may be a difference between not only expectations for how to go about work, but then just what is work, or what is completion of a project in general. And oftentimes I think in my experience, when you have a disconnect, it's because there haven't necessarily been clear goals and clear expectations set up front, and then the communication has not been established throughout to make sure that those goals are accomplished. Like one example, let's say you're someone who's impact, you're someone who likes to move very quickly, you want to get the project done. And then you have people on your other team who maybe are structure, connection, or clarity. They may have a different definition of what done looks like. And as someone who's impact, you're usually someone who's big in ideas, but you might have to go and shift more to details and actually put together, an established OKR, establish, sprints for completing the project, just to be clear on what done looks like, so your team can execute successfully there afterwards. If you're able to help provide additional details in that context, you can kind of close the gap, and you'll create a situation where everyone on the team, no matter whether there's someone who likes to move very fast, someone who's a bit more detail oriented, someone who's a bit more structured, they're going to be able to go ahead and come together and understand what the common goal is and work towards, getting success in that project.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's really important that we make sure that everybody feels like they're supported when we're working with a team. All right, so Sam, what happens when a team doesn't function well together?
Well, it's not good. But basically, it's gonna, yeah, there you go. That's the whole podcast. But it's gonna impact team performance ultimately. And I think here's a good example using tilt language. You may have people on your team, or a team that's majority connection, for example. So you're going to be really great with ideas, with creativity. But if you look at the opposite side of the spectrum, which is structure, which is around structure, having processes in place. If you're a team that's tilting more into the side of connection, and you have a team that's majority connection with not many people in the structure category, then you may find that you have a lot of ideas, you have a lot of new projects that you begin to start, but you could have some difficulty with completing those projects either on time or in a structured manner. Also potentially consistency over time. And I think that that's really where tilt comes into play here, because you're able to see not only how your individual personality patterns are in the team, but you're able to see your team's personality at whole with products such as the team climate report, which give great insight, like I just mentioned, into different personality patterns and personas that we're sharing. So I think ultimately, when you have a team that's not functioning properly, you're going to have team dysfunction. That's going to result in an impact on your performance. But it goes deeper than that. The best way that you can go ahead and determine what exactly is going to happen is by understanding your team better and understanding yourself as a leader. That's why I love working at Tilt. That's why I highly recommend the product. But even more than that, whether you're using Tilt or something else on the market, it's just important to bring that general awareness to yourself and then your team, because you're going to understand this new frame of mind that people do have different work styles, different work patterns, and it's going to help bring to light common patterns and themes that you see within your team itself. I know for us, example, we do have situations where our team maybe shifts more towards impact at times, and the opposite side of that is clarity. So if we go ahead and look at the Tilt model here, you have impact on this side, clarity on this side. So you're going to have a lot of ideas, a lot of action, less on the side of detail oriented. And that's going to be a potential blind spot for us. So even in our team itself, we use the same model, and it helps give you a quick snapshot in regards to what are some potential problems that may be occurring, or potential blind spots that you could be experiencing as a team that cause dysfunction and low work morale, and how can you go about remedying that.
Yeah, that's great. And I think one of the things that we also discussed is balance, so everybody on the team has something to contribute, regardless of which tilt they're coming from. Sometimes what happens is we get a little lopsided. We have a couple of members who are, a certain tilt, and so we tend to lean in that direction. And so what we're really striving for here is balance. So Sam, what are some ways that we help support teams at Tilt? What are some things that people can do when they come to Tilt to kind of find that balance for their team?
Yeah, and I think before I talk about some of the ways you do that, you really touched a good point, which is just the idea of balance as a whole. And at Tilt, that's really one of the things that makes us unique. There's a lot of assessments on the market, but Tilt is a strength assessment, and it really focuses on the idea of agility. What we believe is that people have kind of a natural place they like to hang out. So maybe you're someone who's more impact, more connection, clarity, or structure, but ultimately we are more versatile than just that one personality pattern. And in fact, we can shift to context. We can tilt to context. So, you may be someone who's impact, you may be a team that's impact, but if the situation arises, you can shift towards clarity to be successful. This is something that we do at Tilt all the time. We look at situations at hand, projects that we need to do, if we need to change initiatives, and say, okay, we got to shift towards structure now. We got to shift towards impact, shift towards clarity. And it's an incredibly helpful framework. And that's really, what teams can use and how Tilt can benefit teams. If you're a team or a team leader, the best thing you can do is get started with the Tilt profile, team climate report, and bring some awareness to your team. We have other options as well. We have coaches, we have workshops, e-learning, but just on a high level, bringing that awareness as far as different people's work preferences, the idea that people are different and do have different work styles, but ultimately we are agile people. We can shift the context. We can come together. This is not, an either or, it's a both and. I think if we can, as a team and as team leaders, keep that in mind and bring that exposure to the team, then that's going to ultimately help the next time that low morale does arise to remedy it quicker. Because don't get me wrong, that's something that is going to happen. That's a part of human nature. We're all people and we all have relationships, and some of them are very complex. And oftentimes, especially in a remote environment, communication can be difficult. But the great thing is, if you as a team understand this common framework and understand this common team language, then you know how to communicate in an effective and respectful manner. And that's going to bring about, less team dysfunction. Or if you do have some issues or some low work morale that arises, you can remedy it much quicker.
So Sam, let's talk a little bit about leadership. And so we all have our own certain, style of leadership and what we bring to the table. And what I wanted to talk a little bit about is the awareness factor in that. How does what we're doing affect our team, and why should we really care about that?
Yeah, this is an important topic. And as a team leader, it's really easy at times to, have a team that's not functioning well. Maybe you're having issues with team performance, team communication, some other problems. Maybe there's someone on the team who, you're not having a good relationship with. And it's really easy to say, okay, my team is like this, or my team is doing that. But you have to take a step back and realize that you are the core, an integral part of the team. You're the person who is the engine to helping the team move along. That doesn't mean necessarily that you're someone who is like above the team, but that does mean as a team leader, do you have a responsibility to ensure that your team is operating the best of their ability and that they ultimately are successful? That falls on you as the manager, and that's part of your responsibility. So the awareness that it's not your team, it's not my team doing this, or it's my team doing that. It's we have this issue or we have this blind spot and we have to work on this. And the first thing that you can do is look at yourself. I like to use examples because they're great ways to kind of bridge the gap and show how, oftentimes you may be seeing something that's occurring, but you don't realize the perspective that you're bringing or the side that you're bringing to the table. So a really great example is this. Let's say that, I'm managing a team and, I'm someone who shifts more towards impact, which is actions, ideas, as we mentioned. And my team is, getting projects done, but I feel like there's a lot of rework that need to be done. So each time they're finishing a project, they're doing it in a quick manner, but there's a lot of things that are missing. I could say, okay, my team, they're not focused, they're not getting things done, they're not paying attention to details, or maybe I need to take a step back and look at, my own personality patterns and my leadership styles and recognize that I may be contributing to this. So in this situation, if I'm someone who's impact and I'm, wanting to go and be very fast, that could be causing my team then to shift less from clarity and more into impact. And the result could be less details, less focus. So in this situation, as a team leader, I'd look at that and say, okay, what can I do then if I want my team to not have to do rework on projects or get projects done more quickly? Not get projects done as quickly, I should say. And what I suggest then is shifting more towards clarity, not only as a team, but then as a team leader. So what are some practical examples of that? Some practical examples could be doing a better bit of planning during the pre-project phase for defining what completion of the project looks like, making sure that you actually spec out exactly what you want to build or what you're trying to campaign for, so the team knows exactly what they need to work on. In that situation, you can quickly go from saying that you want to have a project done and then realizing that you have to do rework to going and taking a step back, taking the time to go ahead and make sure that you actually have the project planned out properly so the team can move forward and everyone knows what success looks like. So that's just one example of awareness. Of course, you have different tilt patterns. We're all very complex. But the whole idea of understanding that, it's not just your team, it's yourself, and you're a leader. And as a manager, it's your responsibility to understand what's really happening with your team. And what's the best way you can do that? It's by understanding yourself, understanding your team members, and understanding how collectively you all work together. And then you take that information and you go with the project at hand, and you can shift the context to do exactly what you need to do to be successful and go from a team that's dysfunctional to a high performing team.
That's excellent. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, it's all about balance. Okay, so let's say that I'm a team leader and I'm really, into what you're talking about. What are some things that I can do? Where do I go? How do I find this information, Sam?
Well, of course, type in Google or go online, type in tilt365.com. You'll land on our website. We actually have a few different offerings. We have our True Tilt profile, which is a personality assessment based on character strengths. That's going to help you, go ahead and understand, where you're tilting in the situations. Can help your team members know that as well. If you do a team purchase, you'll go ahead and get the team climate report, which I talked about before. That's the team composite report. It's going to show your team's, personality pattern as a whole. And then we also have other team offerings. We have one called the Team Agility Predictor. It measures 12 character strengths, focuses on innovation and generativity. Think of a 360 feedback tool, but for teams. Really powerful. It's something that we've recently done a lot of science on. So that's also on, our site, tilt365.com. So I'd say go ahead there, get started. The biggest thing is getting that awareness, making that first step. And, we're always available, of course, if you want to reach out to us and learn more about this topic.
All right. Thanks for joining me today, Sam. This has been an excellent conversation. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Appreciate it, Bob. Yep, anytime, and looking forward to seeing you again soon.
You've been listening to Tilt 365. Strength-based personality assessments that grow people beyond a personality type.